Try making too woke be a cancelable offense. It's important for America to have a center-left party, and for that party to be competitive. And a good first step toward that goal would be to make the voters not want to punch you in the face. The reason I'm so mad at the Democrats is because, as a voter, the issues that were important to me were democracy and the environment. And now, there's no one to champion or defend either of them, because you, with your aggressively anti-common sense agenda and shitty exclusionary attitude, blew it. You lost everything.
Bill Maher has once again ignited a blazing spark beneath the so-called woke left, and their resulting meltdowns are nothing less than absolutely spectacular. They still cannot bring themselves to accept the cold reality that Kamala Harris was defeated in the election by Donald Trump. As a result, the excuse-making machine is running at full throttle. Yet Maher, a self-described left-leaning commentator, has just unleashed a harsh and unfiltered truth bomb that hurled them into a full-scale panic. If you hunger for searing political commentary capable of shaking the very core of every woke activist in view, hit that subscribe button and let's jump straight in.
My message to the losers: losers, look in the mirror. No? Well, maybe you should. Sorry. Well, that's my feeling. Losers, look in the mirror, okay? You know, I mean, for months, Democrats have been saying, how is this even close? And they're right, it wasn't.
And that was the very statement that hurled the woke left into a complete tailspin. Rather than accepting responsibility for their own shortcomings, they've been busy hurling accusations at anyone and anything in sight over Kamala Harris's devastating defeat, Russia, the mainstream press, the American electorate, practically every remotely blamable target except themselves. Accountability simply does not exist in their playbook. So, when Bill Maher stepped up to deliver his monologue, they braced themselves for the familiar blame game narrative. But instead, he overturned the entire table, telling them to quit whining and start engaging in some serious self-reflection. That remark alone had them visibly uncomfortable, yet it was what followed that truly shook them. His unapologetic, take no prisoners truth bomb that didn't merely ruffle feathers, it tore the entire bird to shreds, igniting an internet firestorm of epic scale.
They could not conceive of a second Trump term, but they should have. When does America ever turn down seconds? I mean, come on. Look, this is just the facts. It's just the facts. Trump won all the swing states, all 7. I mean, he ran the table. Trump won so big. Today he called the Secretary of State in Georgia and he asked him to lose him $11,000.
I completely understand why Bill Maher manages to drive the vast majority of leftists absolutely up the wall, because nothing cuts deeper than being roasted into oblivion by one of your own. They expect him to stick to the predictable late-night talk show formula, rip into Trump, toss out the same cheap jabs, and recycle the tired punchlines that Jimmy Kimmel, Jon Stewart, and Stephen Colbert churn out night after night. But Maher, he's carved from a different piece of cloth. He's not interested in playing the role of partisan cheerleader. He's here to expose hypocrisy wherever it lurks. And when he aims his sights at the Democrats, his zero-mercy takedowns aren't merely sharp, they're downright legendary, leaving his own side scrambling for excuses and tending to some very public, very painful political bruises.
But, you know, he has an amazing coalition. He kept the old crowd that likes him. He got a lot of new voters. He got a lot of people who say they just want to see what he'll do. I call this the get the cat high vote.
Maher then highlighted one of the critical factors behind Donald Trump's triumphant return to the White House: his ability to hold firmly onto his loyal base from past elections, while consistently drawing in fresh supporters, something the DNC completely failed to mirror by the conclusion of Joe Biden's second year in office. Nearly half of the voters who had once marked their ballots in his favor had already abandoned ship. And these weren't just everyday citizens. They included prominent public figures such as Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, both of whom openly distanced themselves from the Democratic Party. Then came RFK Jr., who ultimately broke ranks after becoming disenchanted with the increasingly radical, woke-driven policies dominating the left's platform. Maher's observation was harsh yet unmistakable. Trump's playbook centered on retention and expansion, while the Democrats appeared more committed to alienating their own base and watching their coalition collapse right before their eyes.
He did better, like in every demographic. The exit poll said he grabbed 52% of white women. He also got their votes. Yeah. We're going to keep doing jokes here, okay? Right? Both sides, right to the end.
Trump securing 52% of the white female vote is nothing short of remarkable, especially when you consider the left's relentless campaign to bury him beneath an avalanche of scandal. They paraded women into courtrooms to testify against him, transforming the legal system into a stage for political theater. The legacy media didn't merely report on these proceedings, they shadowed every hearing, dissected every statement, and scrutinized every facial expression, delivering breathless, wall-to-wall coverage. The mission was unmistakable: paint Trump as beyond redemption, obliterate his public image, and render him politically untouchable. They hurled every smear, every allegation, and every ounce of media firepower at their disposal. Yet, when the dust finally cleared, Trump emerged with legal vindication from the courts and, perhaps most astonishing to his critics, the support of a majority of white women voters. In the end, the carefully crafted narrative collapsed, and the electorate penned their own conclusion.
You have completely lost the ability to speak truth to bullshit. The Democratic polling firm Blueprint told Democrats months ago that black voters, aka their supposedly liberal base, were more likely to find the president too liberal than too conservative. They also found that voters didn't just want Harris to distance herself from Biden, they wanted her to distance herself from what they believe the entire Democratic Party has become, a Portlandia sketch.
While Trump was making unexpected inroads with white women, Kamala Harris was steadily hemorrhaging support among black voters, a demographic the Democrats have long assumed would remain firmly in their corner. Why? Because the left had drifted so deeply into the trenches of woke culture that it began alienating key segments of its own coalition. Rather than prioritizing economic empowerment, public safety, and educational opportunity, the core concerns in many black communities, the DNC chose to double down on catering to LGBTQ activists, a move that often clashed with cultural values traditionally upheld in many black neighborhoods. Instead of listening, engaging, and fostering genuine dialogue, Harris and her team opted for a top-down approach, lecturing and imposing their ideals. That heavy-handed strategy didn't merely miss the mark, it exploded spectacularly in their faces. The result: mounting frustration, dwindling enthusiasm, and an unmistakable message from black voters that their loyalty could no longer be taken as a political certainty.
But Kamala threw the environment under the bus to win the fracking vote in Pennsylvania and the automobile vote in Michigan, and then didn't win either. At the presidential debate, environment came up once, and Kamala used the opportunity to brag that we've increased domestic gas production to historic levels. And Trump, of course, called Mother Nature a childless cat lady. And now we're back to that, because the Democrat lost. So good luck to us, and enjoy the impossible lobster.
And that, right there, is precisely what so many Americans admire about Donald Trump. No smoke, no mirrors, no tangled web of doublespeak. What you see is exactly what you get. He doesn't wrap his words in layers of political fluff or cloak his intentions in carefully crafted, focus group-tested sound bites. You may not like what comes out of his mouth, but you'll never have to question what he truly meant. No deceit to win your vote. No hollow promises meant to keep you pacified until the next election cycle. No betrayal dressed up as compromise. Trump's brand is raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically transparent, tan in a political arena overflowing with staged theatrics. That's a rare and valuable currency. Voters couldn't say the same for Kamala Harris, and that became her undoing. From the very launch of her campaign, Harris's messaging was muddled, inconsistent, and frankly, all over the map. She shifted her tone depending on the audience, tweaked her talking points based on whichever demographic she was courting that week, and sidestepped clear stances on the most urgent issues. Her speeches were rich in platitudes yet painfully poor in substance. People listened, waited for a meaningful takeaway, and walked away empty-handed.
Try making too woke be a cancelable offense. It's important for America to have a center-left party, and for that party to be competitive. And a good first step toward that goal would be to make the voters not want to punch you in the face.
Maher is absolutely correct. The Democrats must loosen the suffocating stranglehold of woke culture. If they have any real shot at winning the next election, they've allowed fringe, hyper-progressive ideals to hijack their platform, alienating massive segments of everyday Americans who are looking for practical, common-sense solutions, not ideological sermons. Instead of force-feeding woke talking points to the public, they should be truly listening to the concerns of ordinary citizens. Concerns about the economy, jobs, public safety, and stability. Policy should be grounded in reality, not dictated by fleeting Twitter trends. This fixation on identity politics and endless virtue signaling doesn't inspire, it irritates. In fact, it has reached the point where, figuratively speaking, it makes people want to punch them in the face out of sheer exasperation. If the Democrats could shift their focus back to bread and butter issues, rather than indulging in woke theatrics, they might actually stand a fighting chance against a political force as relentless as Trump's.
I will conclude by saying the reason I'm so mad at the Democrats is because as a voter, the issues that were important to me were democracy and the environment. And now, there's no one to champion or defend either of them because you, with your aggressively anti-common sense agenda and shitty exclusionary attitude, blew it. You lost everything. House, Senate, White House, Supreme Court, and left us completely unprotected and ready to be violated. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody!
The Democrats have managed to profoundly disappoint large portions of their own base with an agenda that appears almost allergic to common sense. While the economy was faltering, families struggling to cope with soaring prices and stagnant wages, their top priority wasn't tackling inflation or creating good-paying jobs, no. Their spotlight was fixed on advancing gender-affirming care for minors, promoting medical interventions for children still years away from adulthood. On the global stage, America's reputation was slipping, our adversaries growing bolder, our allies increasingly uneasy, yet the DNC's focus was on enacting policies that allowed biological males to compete in women's sports and enter female-only spaces, igniting outrage among parents, athletes, and ordinary citizens alike. Instead of rallying Americans around shared values and urgent challenges, they chose to double down on polarizing cultural skirmishes, sending an unmistakable message that ideology outweighed practicality and political maneuvering came before the very people they were elected to represent.
What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok.
In the end, the Democrats' 2024 loss wasn't solely the result of Donald Trump's political strength, it was equally the product of their own self-inflicted wounds. While Trump maintained his loyal base, broke into new voter blocs, and projected an image of authenticity, the DNC alienated key constituencies with muddled messaging, tone-deaf priorities, and an unyielding devotion to woke culture. Kamala Harris failed to inspire trust, opting for safe, scripted platitudes instead of bold, decisive stances, rather than confronting the kitchen table concerns of everyday Americans' jobs, inflation, and safety. They fixated on divisive cultural battles that splintered their own coalition, from losing white women voters to hemorrhaging support among black Americans. The warning signs were glaring, yet ignored. Even prominent voices within the left, such as Bill Maher, sounded the alarm, pleading with the party to abandon ideological posturing and reconnect with reality. They refused to listen, and they paid the price. If Democrats hope to win again, they'll need far more than excuses. They'll need to remember exactly who they were elected to fight for. And that wraps up today's commentary. If you enjoyed our fiery, no-holds-barred political breakdown, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more hard-hitting videos just like this. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.